In module 1, we will do a simple router configuration. We will have here a router with two wireless LANs. So our objective here is to be able to connect WLAN 1 to a wireless access point, and at the same time be able to connect a laptop to Ethernet 2 of this router. Okay? So let's now connect to our Winbox and connect to our router right there. So let's bring up a terminal and then bring this up a little. Our first step is to reset configuration so that we will erase any configuration including default values, and we will be starting from scratch. To do that, you have to type system reset configuration. We don't want any existing users, so we say keep users equals no, and we don't want any default value either, so no defaults is uses. Okay, so when you're ready, hit enter. It's a dangerous move, so be careful about it. Of course, we are sure about it, so let's say yes. The router is now done rebooting, so we can reconnect. And we are back. The first thing that you're going to do is always to check the interface available to you by simply typing interface print. There are 7 interfaces in the RB952UI model, which is comprised of 5 Ethernet ports and 2 wireless access points. One of them is 2.5 GHz and wireless LAN 2 is 5 GHz. In this result, you can see that Ethernet 2 is connected with an R besides it, meaning it's running. However, our WLAN 1 and WLAN 2 is disconnected with the X, so that will be our first objective. Next, we are going to enable WLAN 1 interface. And to do that, we use the system command interface enable, and the name of the interface, which is WLAN 1, and enter. So let's see if there's any change. Interface print. There you go. So on item number 5, you could see that WLAN 1's X flag is removed, so meaning it's now enabled. Now we are ready to connect our WLAN 1 to the wireless access point. And when connecting the router to a wireless access point, you need to know a few things like the SSID, which is the name of the hotspot. You need to know the password, what is the encryption type used by the wireless access point, frequency, channel, and band, among others. And most likely you don't have that information except probably for the SSID and password. So what we are going to do is we will scan nearby APs or access points and simply connect by providing a security profile if there is. And to do that, we are going to use the user interface instead of the CLI or the terminal to perform this particular set of instructions. First, let's create a security profile. We go to wireless, select on security profiles tab, click the plus button, and then type in some details. So I'm gonna name the security profile as home fiber. And then for the ciphers, if you are not sure about it, you simply type or you simply select all of it. Okay? And you have to provide a password. And there's my password. Make sure you get it right. This is a pitfall sometimes if you are not able to type the password properly. I think we're good. So we have a name for our profile, home fiber. We check all of it because we don't know exactly what is the connection or the cipher that is being used by the access point. I provided a password here, and when you are done, click apply and OK. Now we are ready to connect to the wireless access point, and let's go to interfaces. You select the WLAN 1, double click, and then go to wireless. Okay, and then hit the advanced mode so we could see all the other attributes. There it is. The first thing that we are going to do is to scan the network and figure out what are the available access points that we have here. I'm gonna use my WLAN 1 to scan the network. Click start, and there. So we have been provided with several access points. I'm gonna choose 02G, which is the closest to me at this point. Select that one and then connect. You would notice that the SSID have changed. It is now 02G, and some of these values may have changed also depending on the type of access point that you have chosen. Okay, if the wireless LAN is the one connecting to an access point, you have to choose here station. But if you are the one providing access point, then you choose AP bridge. So for the meantime, let's go check station, and then remember we created a security profile, so we have to use that security profile here. The default has no password, so we're going to use the home fiber which we have created to connect to the selected access point here. And I think we're ready. So when you're done, click apply and then OK. At this point, the router via WLAN 1 is now connected to the access point, but no IP address yet. So let's check. Let's go back to our terminal and use that to issue commands. So where's the terminal? Let's go back to the terminal. Let me put that up again. All right. So let me check on the available IP addresses by typing IP address. If you want to list something, you just say print at the end, like this, print. You can see that there's no entry for any IP address. And of course, our networks works on an IP address, so we have to provide one. So checking on an IP address, it shows no entry yet. What we are going to do now is we will assign an IP address for interfaces WLAN 1 and also for the Ethernet 2 of the router. Let's bring up the diagram once again and let's try to examine our next action. So right now we have connected this particular wireless LAN to the access point and provided some passwords. At this point, none of these interfaces, WLAN 1, Ethernet 2, and Ethernet 0, have an IP address. What we want to do is, we will have our WLAN 1 get its IP address from the wireless access point by setting the WLAN 1 as a DHCP client. On the other hand, our Ethernet 2 of this router, we will configure it to have an IP address 192.168.100.1, and the device that is connecting to this port will be assigned with a 100.2. So this network has an IP address of 192.168.100.0. So take note of that, okay? Our step number 5 is to set the WLAN 1 as a DHCP client, and we're gonna type some CLI commands again at this point. So type IP DHCP client, and then we are going to add interface, which is the WLAN 1, and we are going to enable it by saying disabled is equals to no. So let's just check. So IP DHCP client, this is the system command. What we're going to do is to add the WLAN one as a DHCP client, and we will enable it by default by saying disabled no. Hit enter. Okay. Now let's check the DHCP client table. So DHCP client, and we're gonna go print, but this time I'm gonna add a detail so I could see more information right there. You could see that the values of gateway, DHCP server, and primary DNS, which is 192.168.1.1, these are all pointing to the access point that we have chosen, which is the 02G. So meaning it is 02G that is providing us all the information that we need, such as the DHCP server, the primary DNS, and the gateway that is needed by this router to be able to connect to the network and eventually to be able to connect to the internet. Take note also that this particular IP address that was provided to us expires after 24 hours, more or less. Okay, so after 24 hours, this particular IP address will have to be renewed again. So when 50% of the time already expires, our router will try to negotiate and ask for another IP address, and it could be that the IP address that will be given will not be the same the next time around. Take note also that when the connection is successful, you should get a bound status for your DHCP client. At this point, the WLAN should be able to connect already. At this point, our router should be able to connect to the internet using the wireless access point. So let's check that. Let's try to ping google.com from the router. So say ping google.com, and there. So we got a response time, so meaning we could already connect this router to the internet, but not yet from the desktop, no, but not yet from the desktop. Okay, so that will be our next objective, to be able to connect the desktop, which is connected to Ethernet to the internet. Our next step now is to assign an IP address 192.168.100.1 to Ethernet 2 of the router, and at the same time assign 192.168.100.2 to the PC. And to do that, we're going to use the CLI command again using the IP address command. Type IP address add. What is the address? That's 192.168.100.1. Don't forget the /24, meaning we are using a class C address here. And then what is the name of the interface? So we're going to assign this to the Ethernet 2 port of the router, right? So check. When ready, hit enter. Let's examine the address now. We will be expecting two addresses here, one that is dynamic right there. So you can see WLAN 1 has an address of 191.9, and our Ethernet 2 is 100.1. Note that WLAN 1 has a D flag besides, which means this is dynamic. We were able to acquire this IP address from the DHCP server. However, the Ethernet 2, this was manually entered just a while ago. Okay, so we're almost done. And the next step is to configure the desktop this time and assign its appropriate IP address. So you have to go to internet or Ethernet, I'm sorry. So Ethernet, change Let me bring this up here. Right. So you have here the Ethernet. I'm using a Windows 10, so it looks something like this. And then you go to change adapter settings, Ethernet, right click, properties, and then choose IP version 4, and then go to properties. So right now it's obtaining an IP address automatically. That's gonna use the following IP address: 192.168.100.2. Okay, and our subnet bus is 255.255.255, which is a class C. Our default gateway should be the address of the router where this desktop is connected, which is at Ethernet 2. So 192.168.100.1, right? So, and then we assign a DNS. We're going to use the Google DNS always in all the modules. So 888, and the other one is 8.4.4. Okay, so we're done. Close, and then let's now examine. Okay, so let's close. So let's go back to the router. So from the router, we should be able to connect or ping the laptop that we have just configured with an IP address. So you would say ping 192.168.100.2. That's the IP address. So and hit enter. There, you have a reply. So similarly, oops, let me just continue on that. Let me bring up the terminal. This terminal is coming from my desktop. This is the terminal for the router, the blue one. This is the terminal for the desktop. And let me do the same thing from here. So I would say ping 192.168.100.1, which is the address of the Ethernet 2 port of the router. Right, so they're communicating. At this point, if you ping the AP gateway, which is 192.168.1.1, you will not be able to connect to it. The same thing when you do ping google.com, it is not yet possible since the IP address of the laptop, which is 100 or 192.168.100.2, is a private IP address, and this is not allowed to communicate past the router. So it will not be able to go past here, and to be able to do that, what is needed is to turn the private IP as a public IP by using the router's IP address. Although the IP address from the wireless access point, which is 192.168.1.9, is also a private address, the actual purpose of masquerading is to have only one IP address that represents all the devices inside the local area network. So if you have other computers connected here and probably to your wireless LAN, so all of those should be represented only by one IP address. So IP masquerade is usually done only in the one interface of the router, which is in this case WLAN 1. Okay, so let's check on that. Let's bring up the terminal at this time and try to ping google.com. Let's bring up the terminal from our desktop and ping google.com, and let's see what's the result. And we could see that we're not able to ping google.com. Now let's add the IP masquerade in our router. We type IP firewall. It's a network address translator. We're going to add a chain, which is source NAT, and our action is masquerade. Okay, so and then of course out interface is the WLAN 1. So ito yung palabas, no? This is the the interface going out to the internet via the wireless access point. So this same command can be done by going to this. Just follow this one, IP firewall, right? So you have IP firewall network address translator, okay, and then we're going to add, which is the plus sign, and then we have to choose here from the general, we have to choose a source NAT, which is our chain, and the action on the action tab is masquerade. All right, and the out interface will be the WLAN1. Oh, I forgot to do that. It's in the general section. So out interface is WLAN1. Okay, right. So I'm not going to hit apply here. Let me cancel that one, but I will do it here, which is the same thing. Hit enter, and then we have a new entry that was created here. Okay, so let's examine now our ping. If we can ping google.com, there you go. Congratulations. As our final step, you might want to save that configuration. So the next time that you needed that kind of configuration, you don't have to redo it again. Or if someone else have rebooted the system, you will just be able to load it up. Let me open the files list. And then just to show you what will happen, let me go export the file, and let me name it a simple configuration, which is the title of this module. Simple config. That will do. Hit enter. Okay, so you now have a configuration file here, which is an RSC, and this configuration file can be downloaded by simply right clicking on it and then download. Let me do that in my desktop. Okay, and check on the desktop. Simple config. Sorry, medyo, and open that with a notepad. Right, so this is the configuration that we have created, and examining, you have all the things that we have entered here. Okay,